Hey guys, today we're doing Chapter 1, Section 2, which is over stem plots and dot plots. So stem plots and dot plots you may not be familiar with, but they're actually really easy. They're really close to just a table. They're just another way that we can organize information. So the first thing we're going to do is create a stem and leaf plot, which if I shorten that, it's a stem plot. So stem and leaf plot of the quiz scores from first period. I want to start in the middle of the paper below because I'm going to do a back-to-back stem plot eventually. So when you're going to create the stem plot, you have your stem and you have your leaves. Okay. So your stem can be any numbers, but your leaves have to be a single digit. So they have to be a number between 0 and 9. So your stem changes depending on what type of numbers you have. If I have numbers like 50, 60, 70, 80, then my stems would be like 5, 6, 7, 8, because my leaves would just be a single number. But if I had something like 100, 110, 120, then my stem would become 10, 11, 12, and my leaves would just be 0, 0, 0. So if I want to put these scores up here, I kind of need to get a little bit of information about my data set before I can do anything. So I'm going to start by finding my smallest number. My smallest number here is 12. And then I'm going to find my largest number, and it looks like my largest number is 99. So that means on my stem and leaf plot, I'm going to go from 12 to 99. So that means that my stem has to start at 1. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so I'm going all the way up to 9 for my stems and my leaves. So now I can go through and I can organize my information. So when I have a stem of 1, the only number I have that starts with a 1 is 12, so I'm just going to write a 2 for my leaf. Okay, now I'm going to look and see, do I have any numbers in my 20s? And the answer is no, so I'm going to skip over 2. Do I have any numbers in my 30s? No, so I'm going to skip over 3. Do I have any numbers in my 40s? Yes, I have a 45 right here, so I'm going to write a 5 for my leaf. I don't have any other numbers in my 40s. Do I have any numbers in my 50s? No. How about my 60s? Yes. So for my 60s, I have just 67, so I'm going to write a 7 for my leaf. Okay, now do I have any numbers in my 70s? Yes. I've got a few different numbers in my 70s. I have 78, 77, 73, 79, 76, 77. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm putting those from smallest to largest. So my smallest number there is 73, so I'm going to start with a leaf of 3, and I'm going to put a comma to separate my leaves out. So I've got 73. Next up would be 76, so I'm going to put a 6. Okay, next up I've got 77, 77, so I'm going to put a 7, comma 7. Okay, then I have a 78, and then I have a 79. Okay, now I'm going to go through and do the same thing for my 80s. So I start with 80, I have 88, 89, 87, 81. Okay, so I'm going to start with 0, that was my 80. Next up I have 81. Okay, then I have 87, and I have an 8 and a 9. Okay, next up I want to do my 90s, so I have 90, 93, 94, and 98. So that completes my stem and leaf plot for the quiz scores for first period. Okay, next up they want to make a back-to-back stem plot, which includes the quiz scores from third period. So we're going to add to the stem plot that we've already created, we're going to add all the quiz scores from third period. Now back-to-back stem plots are really useful because what I can do is compare data sets really easily, and I can see where the different spreads are, and maybe, like for example, looking at this one, I can see that my 70s are really heavy, so a lot of my quiz scores are in my 70s. Well, maybe when I look at my next one, I can see that the quiz scores on this graph are all centralizing around 7, 8, 9, whereas maybe the ones on the next one are going to be a lot lower. So then I can easily compare my two sets. So, using the same back-to-back stem plot, I'm going to enter this information. So Looks like I don't have any 10s, 20s. I do have a 30 though, I have a 39. Okay, so on my stem plot here, I'm just going to make a new column for my leaves. Okay. And I didn't have any 1s or 2s, but I do have a 3, and I'm going to put that 9 there. Okay, notice that it's kind of like a mirror image over the stem. So I'm starting on this side, and I'm going to work my way out. Okay, so I've got my 39. Do I have any 40s? No. Do I have any 50s? No. Do I have any 60s? Yes, I have a 62 right here, so I'm going to put a 2 under my 6. Okay, do I have any 70s? Yes, I've got 70, 75, 75, and 78. So that's going to be 0, 5, 5, 8. Again, notice I'm working my way out, so I'm going the opposite direction on those. Okay, next up I'm looking for my 80s. So I've got 80, 84, 87, 85, 84. Okay, so start with my 0. I had two 84s. Okay, I had an 85 and an 87. Alright, next up I've got my 90s. So I have 90, 98, 94, 95, 98, 93, 94. Okay, so starting with 0, then I've got my 93. And I've got two 94s. Okay, then I've got a 95. And then I had two 98s. Okay, so now I've created my back-to-back stem and leaf plot. So looking at this, I can compare these two sets of data pretty easily. First thing I notice is that the period 3 probably did a lot better because most of their scores were in the 90s, whereas first period had most of their scores in the 70s. Okay, I could also make some comparisons, like there was one person in first period that did really, really terribly, so they had more outliers than third period did. So there's a lot of comparisons that I can make. Alright, next up I want to talk about dot plots. So this is what a dot plot looks like. And a dot plot indicates each data point separately and denotes its frequency. So if I were to read this dot plot, I'm talking about the hours spent studying, and I have 0 through 5 here. And notice that I have these marks between 0 and 1. This would be like 0.5. So this would be, there's one person that studies 0 hours, there's 2 people that study a half hour, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people that study for an hour. So that's essentially how I would read a dot plot. So how many students are in the class total? Well, each of these dots is representing one student. So if I count up all of these dots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I have 20 total students in the class. Okay, how many students spend 2 hours studying? That would be 1, 2, 3. What is the minimum number of hours studied? Well, the minimum number would be 0. Okay, what is the maximum? Notice that on my plot I have a 5, but I don't actually have any students there, so my maximum would actually be 4. Okay, what's the range? So range, we always talk about maximum minus minimum. So my maximum in this case was 4, my minimum was 0, so the range would be 4. What is the mode? Remember that mode is the most popular, that's the way I like to think of it. It's just the thing that has the most dots on it. So in this case, my mode would be 1. And then what is the median? The median is your middle term. So if I have 20 dots, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for whatever is right in the middle, which would be between 10 and 11. So one way that you can think about it is you could count like each side. So I could say this is 1, this is 1. Then I keep going in. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so the median here is going to be that 1.5 mark. Okay, so that's everything for stem plots and dot plots. The homework, you're going to do the Khan Academy. You've got problems 17 and 18 in the book. I also want you to find a data set online with anywhere between 10 and 20 data points in it. From this data set, I would like you to create either a stem plot or a dot plot, whichever you think would better represent the data, and convince me why you made that choice. So essentially, you're going to find a data set online, and then you're going to determine whether it would be better represented as a stem plot or a dot plot. So what you can notice is that with dot plots, you have to put each point as frequency, which is why I only wanted about 10 to 20 data points. So dot plots are really useful when you have numbers that are being repeated over and over again, whereas stem plots are useful when you have some data that's a little bit more spread out. So really think about that as you're making your choice on whether to use a stem plot or a dot plot for your data set. That's everything for section 2.